Good morning, creative friends. This is a quick supply list if you are brand new to watercolors and or taking the Watercolor 101 class. I have very basic but decent supplies here for you to use for you to get started. You can always go bigger, you can always get better supplies, and I will talk about that in the class. But to begin, I always really recommend you want a really good brush, but some student grade paints and papers will work just well. You will learn all of the lessons, all of the 12 techniques, and it's a great place to start. Here is the paper. Canson watercolor, 140 pound, 9 by 12. This paper is, let's focus a little. This paper is readily available. The cover might look different. It might be a different blue, but you're looking for Canson watercolor, 140 pound, 9 by 12, should be in the $10 to $15 range, 30 papers, 30 pages, sometimes there's more. There are lots of other watercolor paper. Most important is look for 140 pound. Michael's, Walmart has some, Hobby Lobby, and then if you want to get more into the professional grade and you are in Albuquerque or Santa Fe, you can go to Artisans. Let's talk about paints real quick. This is a basic set from Michael's. This set you could probably find at Michael's, maybe Hobby Lobby, at Walmart, things like that. Walmart has a brand that looks like this, but it's a different brand name. I wouldn't recommend them. I tried it years ago. Very little pigment. It was really difficult to work with. The Prang or the Crayola, you can find these at any place that has office supplies and that has some kind of Crayola in it. You will find these. This is my workhorse brush. It is a number 10 round Princeton Elite 4850R. And if you are in the Albuquerque area, you can go to Michael's, Hobby Lobby, or Artisans, and you can find something comparable. I don't know if they'll have the Princeton, but you're looking for a synthetic blend round brush. This is a number 10. Number 6, 8, or 10 will work. Anything bigger than this, you're going to have trouble getting into smaller spaces to begin with. There are all kinds of brushes. There are flats, there are fan, there is filbert, so on and so forth. And I talk about those in future classes. But to begin with, a round brush and a round, and if you have a flat, that is just fine. If you have some smaller brushes, that's just fine too. So any of the craft and hobby stores, you want to look for acrylic / watercolor brushes. And they're going to be soft and flexible, and they have a spring back. If this is not clear, just email me. And if you have supplies and you're not sure, email me. They might work just fine. So you're going to want paints, brushes. The other things you are going to want is, these are just a few little extra things. You want a couple of tissues, a few Q-tips. You are also going to want some clean release or delicate release tape, and I'll get back at that in a minute. Paper, again, most important. You want 3 cups of water plus an additional cup. We're going to make what's called a flat wash. You also want something like a pipette or a water dropper, just something to activate your watercolor. So I'll go into more detail about watercolor, but these are considered cakes or pans, and cakes are usually round, pans are usually square or rectangle. For watercolors, these will reactivate with water, so very different than acrylic or oil. If you have from a tube, watercolor paints from a tube, all different kinds of brands. Artist Loft is usually at Michael's. Master's Touch is usually at Hobby Lobby. You know, I would actually recommend just getting a set first, and then later on you can get into the tubes of paint. But If all you have are these tubes of paint and you have the basic colors, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, just think of the rainbow. You need those 6 basic colors for what we're doing. Then what you can do is you need a plastic, or in this case, a ceramic container, and you want something where you can put your paints and they're separated. So paint, it's very different than acrylic. You really only need a tiny amount. That much actually is all you really need for the class. Watercolor, it is a dance between water, paint, your brush, and your paper. So you really don't need much. This is also an example of pans. And if you have a little time before the class, you can make yourself a little swatch, meaning you can see what each color looks like. All right, and here's another little messy palette that I have. This is from Tubes of Paint, and these are really fantastic. You can find these at any craft or art store as well. So it keeps it separated, and then you have mixing areas. So these are really great too, and these close up and they're portable. So if you have 2 paints, put them out the night before. Give them time to dry, and then we can reactivate them. The other thing I was going to show you is we are going to do 12 techniques that are going to demystify watercolor for you. So along with your paper, I recommend 9 by 12. And then you'll need a board. You can always use the back board of the paper. You can always also open it up and tape it down. I will demonstrate that. But even better is to have a board. This has water on it, so I'm just going to wipe it off. Now, why do you want a board? I know with lots of watercolor videos out there, you see it taped to the table. And with watercolor, there's so much opportunity to move the watercolor around that I like it to be on a board. All right, my friends, what I have here is a piece of the Canson watercolor paper, 9 by 12, 140 pound. There's also Strathmore. Again, there's lots of different brands. Michaels has a lot of Canson and Strathmore. Hobby Lobby, they will have their own. It's called Master's Touch. Just make sure it's 140 pound. The poundage of the paper means the thickness. So for instance, copy paper is 24 pound, very thin. This is 140 pound thick. And then 300 pound watercolor paper, it's more like board, very difficult to bend. We are going to use the mid-range 140 pound cold press watercolor. So I have a piece here, and the way that I like to work is to have my piece taped to a board. And you can use this clean release. You can't see it because it's cut off, but this is clean release painter's tape. If you go into any place that sells house paint, you will find tape. If you already have some painter's tape, but it doesn't say clean release, it could tear your paper. So what you want to do is tear off a piece longer, and you can put it onto your clothing a couple times, right? Pick up the fuzz, and this helps reduce the stick. And then you are going to, just on the edge, maybe about a 1/4 inch, because if you have 9 by 12 paper, what you're going to trace is, I'm going to send you something. You're going to print it out 8.5 by 11. I'll show you everything in a minute. And just make sure that it will fit so you can trace everything on. So you can use clean release tape. There's also something called by Scotch Delicate Surface. And I have seen this at Hobby Lobby. And I'm guessing anywhere where they sell paint, house paint, you can also find this Scotch Delicate Surface. And all these things you can find on, the Amazon or Dick Blick art materials. And I really like this stuff because it's less likely to tear your paper. However, it is more likely to come up. So here's my little trick with that. And I'm just getting the edge. I want this paper down because the more water, the more paint we add to it, the more this paper is going to ripple and buckle. And if you have very thin paper, like 90 pound or less, it's going to ripple and buckle. So with this delicate release, I will put it down, and then I'll just secure it even more with a piece of any kind of masking tape. Okay. All right, so now I know that I'm going to be able to lift these pieces without any trouble, but it's also going to stay down on my board. If later on it gives you a little trouble, like it starts coming up, you can put it down on the middle and the sides here. And then just with your finger, push it down. All right, so that's that part. The next part, if you are in Watercolor 101, you will get this. And if you've been in my Water 101 class before, you know that we have done mostly shapes in the past. And what this does is it produces a chart for you. And anyone who is in, who comes into Watercolor 101, 102, 103, just ask me and I will give you access to the previous classes where we take these same techniques you're going to learn, a few different ones, and we do it in these basic shapes. All right, so how do we get this onto the paper? There's a number of ways. The easiest way is if you have some kind of carbon or tracing paper. There'll be a waxy side. The waxy side goes down, and then the matte side goes like this. And if you were to trace it, what you do is you put this where you want it, tape it down, and you put your tracing paper under. I will show that to you in a minute. But what if you do not have carbon paper, etc.? You can turn this around. Now we can see through, which is great because it's just bold black text or bold black lines. And what you do is with a pencil, I'm doing this real quick, so my lines are going to be all wavy. Don't worry if the lines are wavy, it's all good. So I'm just going to do a couple like this so that you can see it. See, I'm all over the place. It's okay. You do want a good pencil line, right? And you do want to somewhat stay near the line so that when you flip it over and trace it, this will transfer. So I'm going to show you both at the same time. I'm going to line this up on my page where I want all of these to be. And I'm going to tape it down in like 3 places at the top. This is so it doesn't move around on me. All right, so I've traced these 2. Now, if I want to transfer it to the page, remember tracing in like kindergarten, things like that? That's all we're doing. Okay, and you also want it taped down so it doesn't move. And then in a minute, I can check it. Okay, so it came through real light. And now I can just fill in the gap. I'm using a pencil. Don't worry about the pencil lines. If you look really closely at a lot of professional watercolor paint, portraits or paintings, landscapes, you will often see pencil marks. Hard to multitask. So I did this egg shape. Here it is. And I can just fill it in. Okay. So if you do not have transfer or copy or graphite paper, that's how you can do it. If for any reason you can't see this on the back side, put it up against a window. It will act like a light box. All right, but even easier, here we have our transfer paper. Put it underneath, and you can use a pencil, but you can also use a transfer tool. This has a smooth kind of roundish ball at the end. They come in different sizes. Sometimes they're called embossing tools. And, you know, if you have one handy, you can use that. Otherwise, and just skip this mark here. The one I send you, I'll get rid of that. And just check it. Before you go through all of it, check it. Sometimes your transfer paper is flipped the other way, and then that transfer is just going to go back to the back of the page instead of onto your paper. Okay, so I'll move to a pencil. You can also use a pen, and you can take as much or as little time as you like doing this. I'll just do a few. Okay. Just make sure it's down. I'll do one of these birds. I'm just tracing around. And this is why you want your copy here and your carbon paper, transfer paper at the top, because you want to be able to see what you're transferring. Again, it's a real pain in the butt. If you think you've transferred everything, you move your copy paper and transfer paper, and then you realize that you have not transferred everything. Okay, so there. It's a little sloppy, but it's okay. You're going to do that for all of these. And then if you like, just go ahead and put in this line. Again, you tape it at the top. Check your work often. Check it often. All right, I am just going to finish these up so you can see. Again, you can take as much time as you want. It doesn't have to be perfect. So see here, I'm kind of all over the place. It doesn't matter. You're getting the shapes down. You'll have some fun, unique birds. Again, before I move on to the next, I check it. Okay, I'm missing a little something here, missing the eye. There we go. All right. Okay, there we go. We have finished it. And then again, check, check, check. Just double check. This is kind of like a little animator move where you can see it. And when you're done, you can remove the transfer paper and then just gently remove this, and you can take the tape off, and you can use this paper again if you like. And this is also, you're already learning how to watercolor paint, because sometimes you have a drawing or something that you want and you need to transfer it to your watercolor paper. So sometimes we see all these amazing watercolors and think it just came out of their head. More often than not, they have done a drawing first. They've really thought about the drawing and then they have transferred it. All right, and I'll give you some other great tips during the class. You're also going to want to keep a pen or a pencil during the class, because after we do each of the different techniques, you're going to want to write it on there. This is going to be a reference for you. Again, it used to be these shapes, and if you like these, great. I can also share it with you. But we're going to do something a little different and a lot of fun this time. So again, your basic supplies. The other thing I want to share with you is think about your setup. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to want my paper towels, lots and lots of paper towels, more than you think. I'm going to give you a way of painting without having to clean your water all the time. Because again, if you are cleaning your water, this gets dirty. All right. And then some of that can transfer onto your page, especially if you're doing anything yellow. Yellow, anything red starts to touch it, starts to go, orange, or you'll get some browns. So you want to keep it clean. So you want 3 cups of water. You also want an additional cup of water. This has some blue in it intentionally. I'll show you what that's about. You want your 6 basic colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. If you know how to mix, then you know you only need 3. If that's above your head, don't worry about it. A few Q-tips, couple of tissues, tons of paper towels, some tape to tape down a board, your watercolors. some way to get some water into there, so to activate it, so a spray bottle, and your lovely self. So I can't wait to see you in the class. If you have any questions about your supplies, just reach out, let me know, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.